Starbase is the unofficial name for the place where SpaceX makes its starships. But what exactly goes on at a starbase? Let's explore that now. First, it should be pointed out that Starbase isn't just a factory, but goes beyond that, as Elon Musk has the idea for an entire city in Texas, known as Starbase. Currently, the town with his factory that produces starships is known as Boca Chica. It is near the Mexican border and has served Musk well in its production of starships. Musk wants SpaceX to expand beyond simply having a factory in Boca Chica and become the city of Starbase, Texas, or as he tweeted in early March, creating the city of Starbase, Texas, adding, "from thence to Mars and hence the stars." These poetic-sounding couple of lines carry a lot of meaning. Musk has been outspoken about his desire to get humans to Mars within the next couple of decades, and ever since he founded SpaceX, has had that as a major focus. Musk has been clear his end goal of sorts is to have humans living in cities on Mars, so one could imagine founding an actual city by the name of Starbase could be a bit of a test run for creating Musk's cities on Mars. It definitely would be easier to establish a city on Earth first and work out the kinks. A potential starbase in Texas could be an entire town with houses, stores, and businesses, with the main epicenter of the town being the factory producing the Starship, as that would employ many people and be the lifeblood of the city, so to speak. As Musk seems to only have plans to expand further in Texas, it would be key for him to be able to have more employees, and a town being directly around the factory would unquestionably be extremely useful, and a draw for possible residents and employees.
Live on the site and work in the factory and then go sleep over there in that little village over there.
It could serve as a test lab of sorts for how Musk would want to design his possible cities on Mars. And some of the people who want to live in the town of Starbase would probably be quite eager to volunteer for a trip to Mars. It would be like having a willing pool of volunteers right outside the factory's doors. That would make it much easier to plan trips to Mars with a skilled and eager crew. Musk has been known for tweeting out big ideas he doesn't always intend to follow through on, but this might have legs. A SpaceX representative apparently made a casual inquiry on how to incorporate Boca Chica into a new town and rename it. A county judge told the news entity Bloomberg there would be extensive paperwork and town votes that would need to happen, but it is theoretically possible, and Musk has tackled things that seemed impossible at first and made them happen before. As it is right now, Starbase is more so just a factory than a full-fledged town, but a lot of land around Boca Chica is being purchased by two LLCs that were created by SpaceX. They are Dogleg Park and Lone Star Mineral Development, and they have been buying up dozens upon dozens of properties in Boca Chica that can be found around the company's Starship plant. This land could be used for more factory development or to possibly create a city. It should be noted that creating a city would be quite expensive, but as long as Musk can continue to get tax credits for SpaceX and garner investors who eagerly put up funds when SpaceX has achievements, the cost isn't that much of an issue for his company. At this moment, the only thing of note for Starbase is the factory, but it is still quite a fascinating factory that itself deserves to be examined. Starbase, as it currently exists, a large factory, may not have a whole town around it, but it is still mightily impressive and complex. After all, Musk has remarked how building a production line to actually make his rockets he and his team think up is 1,000% harder than the design process for the rockets. Musk's factory in Boca Chica is up to the tasks, however, as he has designed it to be capable of producing a new Starship every 72 hours. It isn't about just building a Starship, it's about building a production line of Starships. After all, to successfully get people to Mars and living on the Red Planet, Musk has said he estimates it might take 1,000 Starships. To create a single Starship, SpaceX starts with large barrels of stainless steel. The outer skin of a Starship consists of 17 barrels welded together and then given a nose cone on top. pressured domes are put into the Starship and contain the fuel that helps Starship get through space. Note that to get into orbit, there is another rocket attached to Starship called the Super Heavy. The Super Heavy is a reusable rocket that returns to Earth after launching a Starship into orbit around Earth. Musk has said the hardest part of all of this is the engine. That's the hardest part of the rocket, and the most complicated aspect of a ship is the rocket. It's like a nesting doll of complexity. This complexity is why so many test rockets have blown up. Musk has often explained after failed tests that still yielded useful data, Musk will always point out to people. A number of Starship prototypes have been created, which makes sense as Musk and his engineers were literally dreaming this thing up out of thin air. Of course, it'll need tweaks. Nobody has ever done anything like this before. With a production system in place, the focus becomes optimizing the production line so the machines work well and workers don't get burnout. This is all cutting-edge technology, and a lot of it is proprietary, so only so much is known about how exactly Starships get made and function. It is all extremely impressive, however, to think 10 years ago this was all hypothetical, and now we have a Starbase factory that is making Starships at a fast rate and will soon do it even more efficiently before a whole town of Starbase, Texas, possibly exists in another decade or two, with a city on Mars quite possibly following such a development. It isn't just Boca Chica where Musk has been hard at work making factories. Even though it won't produce Starships, it warrants a mention that Musk plans to break ground in Austin, Texas, on a factory that would be dedicated to manufacturing the tech for his Starlink program. This would include Starlink dishes, Wi-Fi routers, mounting hardware, etc. Employees would work at the SpaceX headquarters in Los Angeles and then shift into Texas. As we said, Musk is going heavy with expansion into and transferring to Texas. One big reason for this is the establishment of tax incentives for space-focused corporations, which is what SpaceX is. It's in the name after all. Between Starbase and a Starlink plant, SpaceX is doing a lot in Texas, hence the early discussed town of Starbase replacing the name of Boca Chica seeming logical. Could Musk try to change the name of Austin, Texas with his Starlink plant? One can only imagine. SpaceX's Starship factory is currently an immense facility that creates amazing rockets and Starships. It has a highly optimized production line that only is getting more and more efficient. There are possible plans in place to turn Starbase into a single large factory to what could be an entire city known as Starbase, Texas. This is all hypothetical, but with all the land SpaceX companies have been buying, and even inquiries being made into changing the current name of the town from Boca Chica to Starbase, it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility that tweets Musk has made expressing hope for the creation of a whole city around the factory could come to fruition. Musk isn't just expanding into Boca Chica alone either. Austin, Texas has a Starlink plant on the way, which will undoubtedly work closely with the Starbase factory and potential future town to optimize the Starlink program, which relies upon Starships to get the satellite technology into space. Considering how much Musk and SpaceX has invested in moving into Texas, one wonders if even someday the state could have multiple cities related to SpaceX and its impressive work. Texas could become known as the SpaceX state, at the rate Musk and SpaceX are expanding within it. SpaceX's Starship factory is a modern marvel, and as a potential city forms around it and gains its own unique title, it'll only be more impressive. Elon Musk has been very vocal about wanting to get humans to Mars with his Starship, but Russia has made it clear they have plans to get there first with their own spaceship, a nuclear-powered one. Why Russia has begun promoting its efforts to get a base on the moon or get humans to Mars in recent years doesn't have an exact answer. It could be that seeing an American company such as SpaceX designing and preparing impressive rockets has brought back memories of the space race for Russia. There may be a financial motivation, as having the technology to go to Mars would be quite impressive, and result in lots of monetary backing from others. Perhaps it is just pride, as Russia still remembers how the Soviet Union got beat to the moon by America, and having a private American company get to Mars first would be another metaphorical slap in the face. Whatever the reason, Russia wants to get to Mars and has plans to use different technology to power its rockets than has ever been seen before. They want to use nuclear power. SpaceX rockets do not use nuclear power. In fact, no current rockets do. SpaceX rockets actually use methane with oxygen mixed in as their propellant. Many rockets before SpaceX used either a kerosene blend, and SpaceX actually used kerosene as well up until methane rockets were developed in 2007. Some spaceships have used hydrogen in the past as well. Methane rockets have served SpaceX well and seem to be the best fuel option for the future of spaceflight for the company. It also has been useful because it can be used to refuel ships in space. Roughly half of all the energy expended traveling to anywhere in the solar system, such as the Moon or Mars, is spent just getting into the orbit of Earth. If you can refuel a SpaceX Starship while it's in orbit, then it can theoretically go anywhere in the solar system if you give it enough time. Why would a Russian spaceship use nuclear power then? Well, Russia has claimed nuclear rockets have been in the works since 2009 and supposedly could operate at such a speed they'd get humans to Mars in a matter of weeks than months. The idea is not using carbon-based fuel, which results in a faster and cleaner rocket. Nuclear rockets have been kicked around as an idea for more than half a century, with the idea that the massive energy generated by a nuclear bomb could be put towards a peaceful use, such as launching a rocket at mind-blowing speed. Nuclear thermal rockets have had designs drawn up and theories made, but they've not actually been made. Now, rockets with thermonuclear bombs have been made by the thousands and were the main focal point of the Cold War between America and the then Soviet Union. Many international rockets were produced with nuclear payloads that could have ended the life on Earth 100 times over. But those were nuclear payloads, not rockets that were themselves powered by nuclear energy in a manner without a focus on destroying Earth. While nuclear-powered rockets were always considered, Russia revisiting them has a bit of an everything old is new again feeling to it. Now, if Russia could get such a thing to work safely, that would be quite impressive. Nuclear energy has a history that is questionable at best, however. Despite how it was promoted as clean and safe energy, nuclear power is arguably one of the most dangerous kinds around. If an oil rig explodes, it pollutes the ocean for years. If a nuclear plant has an issue, however, it'll be centuries before the area is safe to be lived in again. One only needs to look at famous catastrophes such as Russia's own Chernobyl reactor what happened in Japan's Fukushima for living proof of the risks that nuclear energy can bring. Now imagine a nuclear-powered rocket launching from Earth, and what would happen if something went wrong? When a SpaceX rocket crashes, it leaves some debris. A nuclear rocket smashing to pieces would render the accident location and miles or kilometers around it totally uninhabitable. Plus, suppose a nuclear-powered rocket were to successfully launch, but then suffer an issue that causes it to fall from the sky before achieving orbit and crash back into another part of Earth. The entire planet would be a risk of having a nuclear crater left from such an accident. A nuclear-powered rocket malfunctioning and explosively crashing into New York City would be a tragedy of unimaginable proportions after all. A nuclear-powered rocket that works could be incredible, but one that fails is a scary thing to consider. So, how much of what Russia has said is true and how much is an exaggeration designed to fluster Elon Musk and SpaceX? The nation has talked extensively about how it has plans to make incredible nuclear-powered rockets, but has yet to actually present anything beyond bold claims and some old theories or mock-ups. A nuclear-powered rocket is definitely achievable, even if it carries with it a large number of health and safety risks. It just is that even if it can be engineered, Russia hasn't indicated such a process is actually ongoing yet. They have basically talked the talk without following through or walking the walk. This isn't to say Russia's space program has been lacking at all. Russia has still been using standard rockets for decades to launch their cosmonauts into orbit or for missions on the International Space Station. A rocket that is in fact nuclear-powered just has only been talked about without any follow-through. Should Russia really put forth an effort, a nuclear-powered rocket could be achieved. It just clearly from the discussion of risks is something that maybe shouldn't be attempted due to the inherent dangers of nuclear power at plants, let alone in a rocket that could crash anywhere on the globe. One thing that is worth discussing is if SpaceX should maybe consider nuclear-powered rockets. Yes, we just spent a good deal of time discussing how much of their utilization is theoretical, and they could carry immense safety risks. But if a nuclear-powered rocket were done properly and safely, it could possibly bring many benefits in terms of the sheer speed it'd provide in getting individuals and cargo to faraway destinations such as Mars. It probably isn't in SpaceX's best interest to not worry about researching nuclear rockets, as they've already excelled in their creation and use of methane rockets, which also benefit from possibly being refueled in orbit to then go on long journeys. Yes, these methane rockets will result in much longer trips to Mars, but there is much less of a health risk and safety risk from using these rockets than if SpaceX were to try and develop a nuclear-powered rocket of their own. A nuclear-powered rocket that could work perfectly without a hitch could be a wonderful thing, but there are so many risks and variables that developing these rockets is best left as a theory, as opposed to Russia continuing to try and develop nuclear-powered rockets, or SpaceX starting any kind of development of them. After all, Russia can use methane rockets in their efforts to get to Mars just like SpaceX is doing and still be some great competition without having to use risky nuclear-powered rockets in their efforts. Russia has made it clear it wants to beat SpaceX to Mars with its own unique spaceship, one that uses nuclear energy. We've examined how this is a drastically different technology from rockets currently used, and while it would in theory be amazing, in actual practice, it would bring with it so many risk factors that it is most likely not advisable for Russia to actually follow through with trying to create a nuclear-powered rocket. Nuclear technology is simply too dangerous, and there are enough real-life locations that had to be abandoned due to accidents with nuclear technology to prove this point. While Russia may want to get to Mars before Musk or SpaceX, using nuclear-powered rockets just sounds like an extremely difficult and dangerous idea. Whether this turns out to all be bluster from Russia or they actually follow through on attempting to make nuclear-powered rockets will be seen in the near future. In the meantime, SpaceX and Musk will be hard at work using their current rocket technology to create the best rockets possible for Starship. Super Heavy is the massive first-stage rocket for SpaceX's Starship, and there are now bold new plans to catch it when it returns to Earth. As the first-stage rocket for Starship, Super Heavy is routinely recovered and reused. The boosters come down for soft vertical landings after assisting the upper part of Starship to achieve orbit. Starship will go to the Moon and possibly even Mars, and Super Heavy then carefully returns on landing pads or drone ships with precision. However, back on December 30th of 2020, Musk revealed a wild-sounding new plan. We're going to try to catch the Super Heavy booster with the launch tower arm, using the grid fins to take the load, Musk announced on Twitter on December 30th. What does that mean exactly? Well, Musk wants to bring Super Heavy down directly onto the launch stand with it caught by a tower arm so that its landings aren't really landings at all. This method would not require landing gear, as instead, there will be grid fins on Super Heavy that allow it to be caught and double as a way to steer during the precise touchdowns. Why does this plan sound so difficult, however? Musk himself has stated that by having the Super Heavy be caught, it saves mass from the legs and the cost of the legs. Therefore, Super Heavy can then be immediately repositioned with its booster on the launch mount and be refueled and ready to fly again in under an hour. Super Heavy and Starship are already reusable, but saving money from eliminating the legs and boosting the efficiency of Super Heavy makes it an even better first-stage booster. As Musk hopes for regular trips to space to become commonplace for humanity, he has hinted that his long-term vision is to increase production of the Starship to the point where they can build 100 a year for around 10 years. This would make a fleet of 1,000. Such a fleet could transport 100 megatons of cargo, or around 100,000 people to Mars every 26 months or so, as that is when Earth and Mars are closest in their orbits. This would result in a lot of starships with many Super Heavies flying up and returning to Earth. It would be busy. Things would need to be busy for Musk to realize his dream of constructing a colony on Mars by the late 2020s. The launch tower would have a harness that could grab the Super Heavy booster after it boosted back to Earth and lowered itself into the harness's arms. The Super Heavy would be sure to position itself very carefully so that as it returns to Earth, it gently is caught by the harness. This would not be a case where it is just free-falling back to the planet after helping put a Starship in orbit. It would use its boosters to carefully reposition itself and slowly descend back to where it needs to be for the harness to grab it. This would be a very detailed process, not just a rocket plunging back down to Earth in hopes of getting caught. After capturing Super Heavy, the harness would lower the booster back onto the landing pad, and therefore this would eliminate the need for landing legs. Such an elimination would also increase the odds of a safe recovery, as some tests of boosters returning to landing pads have had less than desired explosive results. In those failures, everything has always gone well until the actual touchdown, where issues have occurred. By eliminating the need to actually touch down, that makes everything much safer and productive. There would be many benefits to having Super Heavy be captured once such a system could be in place. SpaceX could easily start deploying big batches of Starlink satellites at an even greater speed, to give one example. Starlink is the program SpaceX is doing to put thousands of satellites in space that could provide fast and inexpensive wireless internet to the entire world. This mega constellation of satellites could provide broadband everywhere and get situated a lot faster with a system that allows Super Heavies to easily be captured, refueled, and reflying. Also, SpaceX has plans to provide intercontinental commercial flights that would give travelers the ability to fly around the globe in less than an hour with point-to-point landings. To not have to use too many Super Heavies or Starships, it is important to have a fast turnaround for the rocket. Plus, SpaceX has an agreement with NASA to assist with sending cargo and crews to the moon for Project Artemis. That calls for a fast capture and refueling to meet contractual obligations to NASA. Being able to capture Super Heavy would clearly be incredibly useful. In the past, Musk has discussed capturing Super Heavy rockets in more theoretical terms. It wasn't until the end of 2020 he made it abundantly clear this was now something in the stages of active planning that could soon be implemented. How soon, though? That is something that only SpaceX and Musk know. It could turn out this plan to capture Super Heavy is already very far along or is in the extremely early stages. There will probably be more information revealed by Musk and SpaceX in the near future that will make it clear just how far along the concept of capturing the Super Heavy is. And it'll be exciting to see an actual process as opposed to just reading about it or watching computer renderings of how the process could go. SpaceX announced its plans to capture Super Heavy rockets instead of having them land by using a harness to grab a hold when they carefully return. It is unclear how far along this plan may be, but it will have a wide range of uses for launching starships into space, for trips to the moon or Mars, as well as Starlink satellites. It will be exciting to see this plan possibly put into action.